Hello, and welcome. Today I'm showing my notes about Shai buffs. This is for new and veteran Shai players. I will cover how to do the buff sequence quickly, as well as buff extensions, how to safely transition to Florang, and even a neat trick to speed things up. Feel free to check the timestamps in the video description to jump around. First, I need to let you know how unsafe talent stance is, though. You always want your Florang to be on your back. If you ever see your Weaponless back, you're probably in trouble. The most unsafe stance for Shai is to be in your talent stance and then CC'd. If you get knocked over while you're in talent, for example, you'll have to be bugged and unable to recover. So we should only be in talent long enough to cast supporting music effects and then quickly get out. You might find yourself like this if you ever accidentally press left click while you're doing other things in talent. This will cast tuning, which unfortunately is not a skill we can lock. This does a suicidally slow animation lock and places us into a weaponless state. This state is very buggy and leads to sure death, like we saw earlier. To get back into Florang quickly, you can use any skill enhancement, like Shift-C for twirl boom, side plus left mouse click for twirl, W and F for tuck and roll, or you can hold C to get back into Florang. We never want to C-swap into talent since it's so dreadfully slow. Therefore, we generally use quick slots to get into talent quickly. Shai's talent is actually subdivided into 3 instruments: Flute for buffs, guitar for debuffs, Bongo for crowd control. This is very different from a single weapon most Awakening classes learn to swap into. Before we can use an instrument, it must be in playing position. If we're not in playing position, we must do what I call a slow start. The slow start is when you first use an instrument that is not being actively played. Your Shai starts by summoning the instrument and then raising it into a playing position. Buffs and debuffs pulse. Pulses happen at regular intervals with channeling a particular instrument. They either apply the buff or effect, or refresh the effect. While channeling, you are free to use one of your dodges. Just be wary of spamming the iframe, as it will not protect you when it's cooling down. The first pulse only happens inside the slow start, at the very end. Other pulses happen at regular intervals, which are mostly outside of your control. And while the effect gets larger the longer you channel and walk around in buffs, it's not recommended to do so, since buffs have a 10-second cooldown but a 60-second duration. This gives you 6 opportunities every minute to refresh the buff for allies. Since other players don't know how Shai works and aren't going to wait for you, it's best just to get close to them and then quickly rattle off all the buffs before they move away. There's a trick you can use to make it more protected and make it quicker. Using Sun's Fury on your quick slot, the Fire Bongo, immediately cancel it with a dodge to get into Summer Rains. Here, you can use the manual inputs for all the buff skills to fire them in rapid succession. Once you're done, all you have to do is safely dismount back to Florang. I'll play it once more and then slow down. And here it is, slowed down. Now that we can replace the slow start with a protected dodge, and with practice, rapidly apply all 4 buffs before immediately dismounting, we are much more protected and faster. Not everyone wants to memorize the inputs for each buff, and that's fine too. A more pragmatic approach is to do the following, which I call the easy mode. First, let's get into playing position for Flute using Sun's Fury trick. We cancel Sun's Fury with a dodge, like we did before. Now that we're in the playing position, place your left hand's fingers over the following keys: A, S, F. And ready your right hand's trigger finger. Now spam these keys, making sure to mix them together in a chaotic fashion. The A and S keys satisfy 2 conditions for us. The F key and right mouse button take turns satisfying the remaining manual input for one of the 4 buffs. Doing this method, you will be forced to keep an eye on your buff bar and make sure they all get refreshed to 59-second durations. Here's my buff sequence in regular speed, and while this may seem impressive to a new Shai player, it's not even necessary to be this fast. We just need to be good enough. We have 6 attempts to refresh our buffs for each party member every minute. There's no easy way to know if the buffs landed on your allies, because while sometimes you can see the graphic floating around their bodies, it's not accurate, so it's better just to ask, hey, do you guys have all 4 buffs? And let me know if you feel slow. That way you can adjust. But wait, there's more. Every 5 minutes or so you can give an extra AP buff by adding inputs after the usual 4 buffs. Our E buff gives plus 30 AP every 5 minutes, and we can simply press E after the 4th buff to start casting it instantly. The only way to cancel this very long E-buff animation is by pressing spacebar when we have 10 or more leaves. Doing so with 30 leaves will give another 30 AP for a total of plus 60 to all allies. Alternatively, we can also use Z Absorb, which gives a plus 50% crit rate to all allies for 30 seconds, and for the Shai casting it lasts 60 seconds. This can only be casted mid-buff sequence by holding a movement key, and I like to hold S, like this. Remember when I said we never want to stay in our talent stance? It's too unprotected, and it leads to strange bugs that easily get us killed. We have a lot of options. Pick one you feel comfortable with. Twirl, or side and left mouse button, is unprotected but has fast frame data. You can even turn your camera for more controlled positioning. Even faster yet, hold C is actually fast when transitioning to Florang, although it's unprotected. Spacebar can safely swap us and share plus 30 AP with allies. Our forward guard, S and left mouse button also works, but it has to be frame perfect. It's actually easier to hold these inputs while dodging until it comes out. This forces a frame perfect by buffering the inputs. Also, it's worth mentioning you can hold Shift and press F to do an area of denial. Once you're in this Forest Echoes Bongo, you can even hold S and left mouse button until it comes out for a forward guard transition. We're going to win toggles a stance change that lets us give buffs at long range. This is rather advanced and pretty clunky, so I won't cover it here, but I will make an in-depth video about this stance soon. Thanks for watching. I'd also like to give a shout out to Jinsany and my guild for helping me make this video. Check back later for more content.